The Cold War. The global struggle between superpowers presented by history, facts and mysteries. The Cold War, one of the most defining global conflicts of the 20th century, was not a war in the traditional sense. It wasn't fought on the battlefields with tanks and troops charging at each other. Instead, it was a geopolitical struggle that played out in the realms of ideology, diplomacy, espionage, and military posturing. The Cold War divided the world into two superpowers, the capitalist United States and the communist Soviet Union. Before we dive into the complex and fascinating story of the Cold War, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an exploration of history's most gripping events and figures. Origins of the Cold War. Ideologies in conflict. The seeds of the Cold War were planted during World War II. The United States and the Soviet Union were allies in the fight against Nazi Germany, but once the war ended, their differing ideologies began to clash. The United States viewed the Soviet Union's communist government as a direct threat to the liberal values it championed. On the other hand, the Soviet Union, led by Joseph Stalin, saw the United States as an imperialist power bent on spreading capitalism across the globe. This ideological division set the stage for the Cold War, where both sides would compete for global influence, military supremacy, and control over the future of the post-war world. The Iron Curtain. The division of Europe. In the wake of World War II, Europe was left in ruins. As the Allies liberated nations from Nazi occupation, they found themselves at odds over how to rebuild and govern these territories. In 1946, Winston Churchill famously declared that an Iron Curtain has descended across the continent, symbolizing the division between the Soviet-controlled Eastern Bloc and the Western democracies led by the United States. At the heart of this division was Germany. After the war, Germany was split into 4 occupation zones, controlled by the United States, the Soviet Union, Britain, and France. Berlin, the German capital, was also divided into East and West. In 1949, the Soviet Union established the German Democratic Republic, East Germany, while the United States, Britain, and France created the Federal Republic of Germany, West Germany. The arms race. The battle for nuclear superiority. One of the most terrifying aspects of the Cold War was the arms race between the United States and the Soviet Union. Both nations sought to outdo each other in terms of military power, particularly nuclear weapons. The fear of total annihilation was real, with both sides possessing the capability to wipe out humanity with their nuclear arsenals. In 1945, the United States had already dropped 2 atomic bombs on Japan, ending the Pacific War. But the Soviet Union quickly followed suit, detonating its first atomic bomb in 1949, just 4 years later. This signaled the beginning of a nuclear arms race that saw both sides develop increasingly sophisticated weapons, including the hydrogen bomb, intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBMs, and nuclear submarines. The constant threat of nuclear war hung over the Cold War, making the rivalry not just a geopolitical struggle but a battle for global survival. The concept of mutually assured destruction, MAD, became a cornerstone of Cold War diplomacy, essentially meaning that if either side launched a nuclear strike, the other would retaliate with devastating consequences. Key events. The Cuban Missile Crisis and the Berlin Wall. The Cold War wasn't just about ideological rhetoric. It involved several key flashpoints that brought the world to the brink of actual war. One of the most intense moments of the Cold War came in 1962, with the Cuban Missile Crisis. In an effort to protect the communist regime in Cuba, Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev secretly deployed nuclear missiles on the island, just 90 miles off the coast of the United States. President John F. Kennedy responded by imposing a naval blockade around Cuba, demanding the removal of the missiles. For 13 days, the world teetered on the edge of nuclear war. Ultimately, the crisis was resolved diplomatically, with the Soviet Union agreeing to remove the missiles in exchange for a U.S. pledge not to invade Cuba and a secret agreement to remove American missiles from Turkey. The Cuban Missile Crisis remains one of the closest moments the world has ever come to nuclear war. Another key Cold War flashpoint was the Berlin Wall. In 1961, the Soviet-backed East German government constructed a wall dividing East and West Berlin, symbolizing the divide between the communist East and capitalist West. The Berlin Wall became a powerful symbol of the Cold War, representing the physical manifestation of the ideological divide. Families were torn apart, and countless lives were lost trying to escape from east to west. The wall stood for 28 years, until 1989, when it was torn down, signaling the end of the Cold War. The space race. The battle for the final frontier. While tensions between the superpowers escalated on Earth, both the United States and the Soviet Union also competed in the space race. The Soviet Union fired the first shot with the launch of Sputnik 1, the world's first artificial satellite, in 1957. The success of Sputnik shocked the United States, which had prided itself on technological innovation. In response, the U.S. established NASA and poured resources into space exploration. In 1961, President John F. Kennedy set the ambitious goal of landing a man on the moon before the end of the decade. This challenge was met in 1969, when Apollo 11 successfully landed astronauts Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin on the moon, marking one of the most significant achievements in human history. The space race continued through the 1970s, but by the time the Cold War ended, both sides had realized that space exploration could be a shared endeavor. In 1972, the United States and the Soviet Union signed the Apollo-Soyuz test project, the first international space mission. The end of the Cold War. The fall of the Soviet Union. Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev implemented a series of reforms, glasnost, openness, and perestroika, restructuring, to address the failing Soviet economy and to reduce tensions with the West. In 1989, the Berlin Wall was brought down, symbolizing the collapse of Soviet influence in Eastern Europe. By 1991, the Soviet Union itself disintegrated into 15 independent republics, officially ending the Cold War. The United States emerged as the world's sole superpower, but the legacy of the Cold War remains with us today. The legacy of the Cold War. The Cold War was more than just a geopolitical struggle between two superpowers. It was a battle for ideas, survival, and the future of the world. While the Cold War is over, its legacy still shapes international relations, security policies, and political discourse to this day. At History Facts and Mysteries, we've uncovered the key events, figures, and ideologies that defined the Cold War and changed the course of history. If you enjoyed this video and want to continue exploring the mysteries of history, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new episode. Join the conversation in the comments below. What do you think was the most important event of the Cold War? Until next time, keep exploring.